All right, so good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jesse, and I am with Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. We are all about bringing conservation, adventure, and science into classrooms around the world. And I'm really excited because right now we've got 7 classes joining us from across North America. I'm going to give them a chance to do a bit of a shout out. We've got Miss Burns, grade 3s in River Forest, Illinois. Hi, guys. Hi. We've got Miss Johns, grade 4s in Thunder Bay, Ontario. Hi, guys. Hi. Awesome. We've got Miss Bowers, grade 6 through 8 in Easley, South Carolina. Hey. Hey. This is a really diverse hangout today. I love it. We've got Miss Kellers, grade 4s in Hutchinson, Kansas. And they are winning for the sheer noise so far. Well done. We've got Mr. Pregler's, grade 4s in Richfield, Minnesota. Hi, guys. Where's that group? There they are. Maybe they're still pouring in. They're enthusiastic. We believe it. We've got Mrs. Vieira's, grade 3s in Hutchinson, Kansas as well.
Hello. They're coming in from recess.
They're coming in. Well, we appreciate your enthusiasm. We've got Mrs. Frawley's, grade 6s in Sarnia, Ontario. Hi, guys. Awesome. And, oh, their mic muted, but they're there. They're excited. We appreciate it. And of course, the reason you guys are all here today is that we are joined by James Ketchell. So he is one of the world's foremost adventurers, as I already said. And in 2014, he was the first and only person in the world to ever complete the so-called ultimate triathlon. So he climbed Everest, cycled around the entire globe, and rode across the Atlantic Ocean, as you know, some people decide to do. I walked to the fridge this morning, but James has bigger goals and bigger aspirations, and we were so thrilled to have him here today. Without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to James to share his story and tell us all about his adventures. Thanks so much, James.
Okay. Hey, thank you so much, guys, for joining me today. I can see you on my screen. Can you guys hear me all okay, yeah?
Thumbs up.
Can hear me? Guys, put your thumbs up if you can hear me, yeah? Wicked, we're in business. So thank you so much for the very, very kind intro. You're too kind. Really, today, what I'm going to do, guys, is just share some stories of fun and adventure. I never set out to do this. It's funny how things happen. And what I'm going to do in a second is bring up a presentation, and I'm going to take you guys on an actual journey across the Atlantic, up Everest, and around the world, and they'll really be able to bring it to life. So give me 2 seconds while we share the screen. Hold on, guys. Be with you in 2 secs. Start screen share. I've done this a few times now, guys, so we should be a-okay. Here we go. Okay, guys, so in order to tell this story, I actually have to turn the clocks back 10 years. 10 years ago, I used to race bikes. This is a Kawasaki ZX6 Ninja. It's actually quite a fast bike. It will max out at 175 miles an hour. And I used to race most weekends. I was pretty quick, but I didn't like losing. But I soon found out it doesn't matter who you are. No one can win all the time. And when you're really competitive and you want to win and you're on 2 wheels, one of 2 things is going to happen. You're either going to win or you're going to crash trying. And unfortunately, I used to crash quite a bit, guys. But it's okay because you wear this leather suit here. So the idea is when you fall off the bike and you slide along the tarmac, the leather suit here stops you from losing all your skin. It's very, very useful, guys. Well, one particular time, I was accelerating hard out the corner. This guy, he was just pulling away from me. I was in 2nd place and he was in 1st place. And I tried to catch him, but I opened up the throttle, put just a little bit too much power down, and the rear wheel span up. So the back of the bike lost traction, and it basically threw me over the handlebars. Now, the problem that you have, guys, when the human body hits concrete at just over 100 miles an hour, it can be problematic. And I don't know if you've ever had an accident before, but you get this idea that time has just slowed down. I remember flying through the air, looking back at the bike, and I had this one thought going through my head. And I thought to myself, oh dear, this is gonna hurt. Next thing I know, bang, I hit the ground hard and it knocked me out. And it was strange because as I remember flying through the air, it was almost like it was happening in slow motion. But of course it wasn't. That's not possible. My senses were massively heightened. So that's what gave me the impression that it was happening in slow motion. And I remember I woke up, I regained consciousness, and you know when you've been hit in the stomach and you're struggling to breathe, you're very winded. Well, it was like that. It was a very hot day, it was dusty, and a doctor, he come and stood over the top of me. And I remember my visor had been ripped off my helmet, and he was standing over me. He was looking into my eyes, and he said to me, "Are you okay, son?" And I said, my leg hurts. And then I'll never forget this. He looked into my eyes and he looked down at my leg and he went, "Ooh." Now, trust me, when a doctor does that, guys, it's never a good sign. He looked back up into my eyes and he said to me, "Whatever you do, don't look down." Now, what do you guys do when you're told not to do something? You're probably going to do it. So, of course, I looked down, and instead of my right foot pointing forwards, I'd snapped my ankle. So it's 180 degrees behind me. It was pointing the wrong, it was pointing backwards. And it's funny because it hurt just that little bit more looking at it. But I remember, I still had a sense of humor in the face of adversity, because that morning I'd put a white sock on, and the doctor, he slid the boot off, and he slid the boot off where I'd broken my ankle. I'd snapped it, and I had something called an open fracture. So the skin had split and the bone had come through. It was bleeding heavily, and my white sock was now red, dripping with blood. And I said to the guy, I said, "Hey, have you got a camera or a phone? Wouldn't this make a great picture?" And he said to me, "Stop being such a silly boy." I said, "Okay, I'm sorry." And then the next thing I know, I was woke up in hospital. Now, I didn't just snap my ankle. I broke both my legs. I broke my arm. I broke my hand, and I fractured my lower back. This was a very big problem, guys. It took me nearly a year to walk again, and I was in hospital for nearly 3 months. And just imagine, guys, what you do every morning. You get up every day and you have your breakfast. You jump out of bed, you run to the shower, and you run downstairs and have your breakfast. You're doing something that you don't think about. You're walking on your own 2 feet. And when someone takes that ability away from you, you suddenly realize how lucky you are to have it. And I remember when I first woke up, I was on this special board, and I couldn't move for 3 months. I had to lie there. And when I mean I couldn't do a thing, I mean I couldn't do a thing. I had to have a nurse wash me. So it wasn't all bad in some respects. I just had to figure out how I was going to try and turn something negative into something positive. And ever since I've been a young boy, I've always had this dream to try and row a boat across the Atlantic Ocean. But I was quite scared. I didn't really know if I could do it or not. And I put it off for years and years and years, because I thought to myself, well, if I don't do something, I can't fail. But I tell you what, that's the worst thing that you can ever do. Never not try something because you're worried about whether you can do it or not. It's much better to have a go at something. So I decided when I got out of hospital, this is what I was going to do. I was going to row a boat 3,000 miles across the Atlantic. Now, it doesn't really look like me, does it, guys? I'm just going to check that you're still there. You guys can see me all right.
We can see your foot. Right, we see that.
Perfect.
Now you're
Perfect. So it doesn't really look like me. My hair goes blonde and my beard goes bright ginger. But we all know that ginger is cool, right, guys? I guarantee you there's going to be some ginger boys and girls in your classes. So what you can actually see in the background is a little island called Antigua. That's in the Caribbean. And I set out from another very small island called La Gomera. So if you're not sure where that is, get your teacher to pull out a map, maybe later on, and you can look at La Gomera in the Canary Islands and Antigua in the Caribbean, and you can see for yourself where I started and finished. Now, usually, guys, you would do this as a 2-man, or sometimes even a 4-man, sometimes even as an 8-man team. And I really wanted to do it with someone else. But you know what? No one would do it with me. I had no choice but to do it on my own. It was probably the best decision that I ever made. I'll share some video footage with you guys, and hopefully you don't get seasick and vomit up your lunch, but we'll find out. Here we go. Hopefully this will come through. Now, guys, you can see the way the boat is moving up and down, and this is very much a standard day. This is not a rough day. And as you come out the Canary Islands, you're utilizing something called the Canary Current. So the whole mass of ocean is flowing down the side of Africa. And as you get to a lower latitude, so that means closer to the equator, you then pick up the North Equatorial Current. And again, the whole mass of ocean is flowing across towards the Caribbean. Then the trade winds start filling in. So they're winds that blow from the east to the west. And the idea is you're riding these winds and these waves. Now, usually it takes about 70 to 80 days to get across, but there was a lot of areas of low pressure. Now that means that the low pressure switches the wind direction. So instead of getting blown across, I was getting blown backwards. It was very demoralizing, but there was nothing I could do. I just had to keep going. And I had this mindset that I was in this massive ocean. And as long as I did one thing, and that one thing was to just keep going, by default, I'm going to run out of ocean at some point. I'm going to get to land at some point if I just keep going, as long as I don't row in circles. And I rowed like this for 12 hours a day. And it took me 110 days, 4 hours and 4 minutes. Not that I was counting, hey guys. But so many people, this is coming into English Harbour in Antigua here. So many people say to me, they say, hey, James, what was it really like spending nearly 4 months out in the Atlantic on your own? What do you think about? What do you do? But you know what, guys? It was probably one of the most magical places you could ever be. Every day when the sun came up, the water, it glistened in a different way. It was beautiful. And the wildlife was incredible. I'll never forget it. These huge fin whales. Now, these fin whales, they are the length of a bus. And they swim, they're just huge. You cannot grasp the size of them. And this whale, he swam right up beside of me. And I remember looking eye to eye to this thing, and I just thought, wow. Now, I don't know if you guys have ever seen the film Life of Pi, but flying fish really do fly. It was 1 o'clock in the morning. I'd been rowing all through the day. I was very, very tired. And it was a very dark night. The moon wasn't out and it was very cloudy. So dark that I had to have a head torch and illuminate the area in front of me. And all of a sudden, this white object came flying out of the water. Bang! Hit me right in the face. I couldn't believe it. I was so tired. I thought that I'd just been hit by a golf ball. And then I thought, hang about, I'm not going to get hit by a golf ball out here. Of course it wasn't a golf ball. It was a flying fish that jumped up and hit me in the face. And it was flapping up and down on the deck. And I thought to myself, what do I do with this thing? Do I try and eat it? No, it's small and bony. So I threw it back in so it could hit someone else in the face another day. And I'll tell you what I used to do, guys. I used to get out of the boat every sort of 5 days to clean the bottom of the hull. And you could only do this when it was very, very calm. And when you get into the water, it's beautiful. It's warm like a bath. It's amazing. It's 3 miles to the bottom. So you're never that far from land. It's just the wrong way. And there's an incredible ecosystem of fish swimming around everywhere. It's magical. Now, guys, bearing in mind, I've been out here for nearly 4 months. I've probably taken over 1 million strokes on these oars. Watch what happens as I'm about to take the last stroke of a 3,000-mile row. You won't believe this, guys. Watch this. Did you see that, guys? The gate broke. I couldn't believe it. How about that on the last stroke of a 3,000-mile row? But luckily I had a spare. I didn't need it. And if you keep watching, something quite funny happens. And no, I don't fall in. Champagne in the face is really painful, guys, especially when it goes in your eyes. It really, really stings. You're much better off drinking it, if you're old enough, of course. Now, guys, I could sit here all day and tell you great stories about being out in the Atlantic. It was amazing. But I want to tell you something really, really important. One of the easiest things I've ever managed to do, and I'll say that again, one of the easiest things I've ever managed to do was sit on that seat for nearly 4 months and pull those oars and row 3,000 miles. Once I got out there, I thought to myself, what was I so nervous about? I should have tried this years ago. And hey, do you know what the hardest thing I've ever had to do, guys? The hardest thing I have ever had to do is to just believe that I could do it. The hardest thing I've ever had to get my head around is just believing I could do this. And I'll tell you what, every one of you watching this now, sitting in your classrooms, I guarantee you, all of you guys, you could get in a boat tomorrow and set off and row across the Atlantic. And you know what? If you're not a very good rower, guess what? You got 3,000 miles to learn. You're going to get good real quick, guys. Every one of you could step in a boat tomorrow and do this. If I can do it, you can do it. Now, I'm a true believer that when you push yourself outside of your comfort zone, doors of opportunity naturally open. You have to do something you haven't done before to make something happen. You know, you've heard that famous saying, guys, for every action, there's a reaction. But you don't get a reaction if you don't take action. And I had to work hard to make the row happen. And during my preparation for the row, I met someone who was also rowing across the Atlantic. And his name was Rob. We became great friends. Now, it just so happened Rob was a very accomplished high-altitude climber. He had been to the top of the world 5 times. And he invited me out. He said, hey, James, come out to Everest with me. And I said, oh, gee, I don't know. I don't know if I can do it. I've climbed before, but not to that level. And I didn't even know if I could do it. But I thought to myself, if I don't try, and I don't even know if I can do it, but if I don't try, I will regret it for the rest of my life. So I decided that I was going to work towards that. And boy, it was difficult. I had to raise the money to get out there, just like I did for the row. The hardest part of all these expeditions is actually getting the funding to make it happen. I don't have lots of money, and I couldn't turn to my mum and dad and say, hey, give me some money. I want to go and climb Everest. I had to figure out how I was going to do it. And so I just had the credibility that I'd rowed across the Atlantic. And so I just set out trying to raise funds. And hey, do you know something? For 3 months, no, actually nearly 4 months, every day I was sending sponsorship emails out. I was making phone calls to companies to try and sponsor me. I had a great charity that I was climbing for. I was raising money for a great charity that helped young people who are disabled and very poorly. But no one wanted to help me. And if I'm really honest with you, I came so close to giving up. And I'm so pleased that I didn't. Because just as I was about to give up, I had a little bit of luck. I ended up getting sponsored, and you know, I was starting to learn something at this point, and that is you have to go through the 95% of rejection and effort and work, and then eventually you will get to that 5% of results, of getting what you want. It's nothing ever comes quickly and easy. So here we are. So this is where the journey starts. This is Lukla, one of the world's most dangerous airports, cut into the foothills of the Himalayas out in Nepal. So it's a 10-day trek up to base camp. This is a porter. His job is to carry food and supplies up to the different camps. And this is a bit of a breakdown as to how we go about climbing Everest from the south side, because so many people, they say, wow, how long does it take to climb Everest? Can you go up and down in a day? Well, trust me, guys, you cannot. It's a very, very big hill. So we need to break it down. And like any big project or big goal, we break it down. It becomes much more manageable. So you got base camp, camp 1, 2, 3, 4, and the summit. But it's not a simple case of just rocking up and making our way from base camp up to camp 1, 2, 3, and 4. We actually have to go through a series of acclimatization climbs. So we'll go from base camp up to camp 1. We'll stay there for the night. Then we'll get back down to base camp. Then we'll go back up again, but we'll bypass camp 1 and we'll go on to camp 2 and we'll stay there for the night. Then we'll come all the way back down to base camp, take a bit more rest. Then we'll go back up to camp 2. We'll stay there for a night. Then we'll go up to camp 3 and we'll stay there for the night. And then guess what, guys? The following day, we come all the way back down. And you're probably thinking, why would you do that? That's crazy. You're almost there. The only way we can stand on top of the world is to go through this series of acclimatization climbs by going up, down, up, down. And each time we go up, we're just getting that little bit stronger. Our bodies are acclimatizing to the lower levels of oxygen. And there is no shortcut to the top of the world, guys. The day it's easy to stand on top of the world will be the day a chairlift is installed. And it's not going to happen in our lifetime. And it doesn't matter whether you're trying to climb Everest or whatever it is that you're doing. If it's worth doing, you're gonna have to go through some kind of process like this. Nothing worth having is easy. That I can absolutely assure you. So I'm going to take you on a bit of a tour up through the mountain now, guys. So this is my tent here at base camp. The expedition lasts 6 weeks. So when you compare that to spending nearly 4 months out in the Atlantic on my own, it's over relatively quickly. And then we'll go up through the Khumbu icefall. Now this is the most dangerous part of the climb because there's a whole mass of ice that's just moving and shifting, and it can collapse and fall on you. It's very dangerous. So we need to get through it quickly but safely. Now we do that by going through, and these are some of the ladders that the Sherpas will put down. And it's tricky when you first go across this, but remember, nothing is easy the first time you do something. It gets easier and easier the more you do it. But I've got to be honest, guys, it was quite scary. As you can see, it's a long way down. So you don't want to fall, but you get used to it after a while. Some of the ladders are quite long, like this ladder here. Gee, this is probably the length of your classroom, I would imagine. And I've got to be honest, guys, I was pretty nervous going across this. There was a lot of people watching me, and I really didn't want to fall. So I'll share some video footage with you. So if you watch this, guys, you can see this is me crossing the crevasse, and it's so deep that you can't see the bottom. And you can see the way the ladder is wobbling and buckling and twisting from side to side. And I've got to be honest, I was quite nervous. But you just look where you want to go and just put one foot in front of the other. And if you put one foot in front of the other and you just repeat that thousands of times, I promise you that will take you to the top of the world. Now, one of the things that these ladders taught me is having the ability to stay calm when you're nervous, when you're anxious about something, or you're upset about something, or even if you're angry. Staying calm is one of the best sort of things you can ever master. It will take you a long way. Now, I had to stay calm because I was stuck. Right now, guys, you're looking at me and I'm stuck, but I managed to free my foot and I got across. So yeah, it's slightly different in real life. So, but you know, it's not too difficult after a while. You get used to it. So this is the team of Sherpas. These are the people that live and work up on the mountain, and without these guys, no one would really be able to climb to the top of the world. These guys will help carry the equipment and the food and the oxygen, and they'll help help me get to the top. So this is going up through the Western Coombe now. As you can see, the atmosphere is very thin up there, guys, so you burn very easily, and the wind is strong. It's quite a savage environment. This is a picture of me when I was back down at base camp. Luckily, I don't look like that anymore, guys, but it was quite tough. So this is camp 2. So it's starting to get quite chilly at this point, guys. I guess about -20 Fahrenheit or something like that, maybe. So it's pretty cold, but for some of you, you're going to be used to it. For me, the novelty of snow had long worn off. No one's throwing snowballs or building snowmen. You just get into your tent and you rest. And then we're going to work our way up the Lhotse face. That'll take us up towards camp 3. And you can see the way the tents are just dug in. Then we're going to traverse across, up over this area of rock. That'll take us up to camp 4. So we're now, guys, we're now in the death zone. So that means we're above 8,000 meters. So nothing can survive up here. Human beings can only really survive for 24 to 48 hours before you die. And that's just enough time to whip up to the summit and get back down again. So to put it into perspective, I think 8,000 meters is about 26,000 feet, something like that, 25,000 feet. So it's pretty high, guys. I'm going to use oxygen now. So the oxygen is coming in through the red tube here into the mask, and you're breathing the atmospheric air around. It's the oxygen is just topping me up. That's all it's doing. So now there's a bit of a strategy. What we're going to do is we're going to climb through the night so we can arrive on the summit in the morning and get back down in the daylight. And as we climb through the night, this is all that you can see. Your head torch is just illuminating the area in front of you. And then about 8 hours later, we get up to this point, which is the south summit. And at this point, you're almost there. You've just got to traverse up to the top. And what you see in front of you, that's the true summit. That's the top. It starts to get quite exposed now, guys. I'll share some footage with you. We shot this. This is just below the Hillary Step, named after Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay. 64 or 65 years now, I think. 65 years ago, they became the first people to stand on top of Everest and get back down again. Now, if you look closely on the left, you can see the very thin ridge line. So there's not much room for error. So you really have to concentrate, guys. It's a 1.5 mile vertical drop. So it's very important to be careful. You don't want to fall. Now, you're going to see something incredible now, guys. This is the famous Hillary Step. This is it, and it's named after Edmund Hillary, who's from New Zealand. He's dead now, but him and Tenzing Norgay, well, those two, they were the first people to stand on top of the world. And that's it. Once you get to this point, all you got to do is haul yourself up over that rock, and you're so close to the top. It's very difficult filming up here, guys, because it's now -40. It's very, very cold. Batteries are freezing up, and everything is very, very difficult. But this is what it looks like to stand on top of the world. So here we are, guys. We're looking south out over Nepal. India is in the distance, and you can just make out the curvature of the earth. It's absolutely incredible. Gee. But I tell you something, I learned this very quickly, guys. When you are stood on top of the world, you haven't done it at all. You are, in fact, only halfway. You still got to get down. And trust me, going down is a lot harder than going up. Now the camera's panning to the north now. You can see it's covering an area. It's called the Tibetan Plateau. And in the distance, you'd find China. Now, this is Makalu, the 5th highest mountain in the world, coming into view now. It's incredible. And I stayed up here just long enough to take a few pictures. This is my favorite photo, guys. I look like Darth Vader out of Star Wars. But just to prove it's me, the ginger beard comes back, and I look very old and very, very tired. Now, things started to go a little bit wrong for me on the way back down. I didn't know it, but I had quite a nasty lung infection, and it was the adrenaline, it was the excitement that really kept me going. And when I got to the top, I realized I still had to get down. I just lost the ability to breathe. I couldn't control my breathing. I was panicking, and it was really difficult to get back down. And if it wasn't for my Sherpa Dorji, I don't think I would be here today, if I'm honest. Usually it takes about 2 days to get back down, but it took me 4 days to get back down, and I'll never forget it. Now, I didn't know anything was wrong with me, but I had, and Dorji, he was going crazy. He was saying, mate, you're moving too slow. You've got to keep moving. Otherwise, you're going to run out of oxygen and you're going to die. You don't want that, do you? And of course, I didn't want that. But I knew in my head, if I just kept moving, I'd be okay. And that concept of keep moving absolutely saved my life, guys. And I want to tell you something. Whenever you have a little bit of a problem, or whenever you're upset about something, or whenever things are not going your way, human beings have a tendency to just stop. That's the worst thing you can ever do, guys. Always keep moving, keep going, keep moving, work through the problems, and I guarantee you everything will sort itself out. Now, I've managed to get back down to base camp, but you know, it took 4 days. I was in a real bad way, and I managed to eventually get back to Kathmandu, but I still couldn't breathe. I was really unwell. And I remember I landed back in London at the airport, and my mum was there. She was there to see me, and I couldn't even push my trolley through the airport. I was so out of breath. And my mum said to me, she was the first thing she said to me. She said, "James, you look terrible." I said, "Oh, it's great to see you. I've really missed you." And she said, "I think we better go to the hospital." And so we went straight to the hospital. And the doctor, he x-rayed my chest, and he put the x-ray up on a big whiteboard. And he said, "Mr. Ketchell, you have a severe lung infection. It's no wonder you can't breathe. You have pneumonia. You're very lucky to be here." I said, "Okay, give me some antibiotics and I'll go home." He said, no, it's not that simple. You need to stay in hospital, and we need to get you better, because if you don't get better, you might die. You're really unwell. So the day I got back from Everest was the day that I then spent 2 weeks in hospital, and it was almost like a feeling of deja vu, sort of having been there before. But I couldn't get this one thought out of my head, guys. I was lying there in hospital, and I thought to myself, wouldn't this be a great idea to cycle around the world? So I got myself better, guys. I got myself better, and I set out from Greenwich Park. Are you guys still there? I just want to, yeah, it looks like you're still there.
Good. Hear you.
Still there? Yeah, still there. Cool. Okay. See, when I'm looking at the screen, guys, I don't know if you're still there or not. But one day I was giving a talk, and I spoke for over an hour. And then it turns out the talk dropped out in the first 5 minutes. So just checking that you're still there makes it, and I know that I'm not talking to myself. So this is Greenwich Park. This is the Royal Observatory is based here, and this is where time starts, Greenwich Mean Time. And so all my friends joined me for the first day, and I set out and headed down to a little place called Dover, and then I hopped onto a ferry across the English Channel, made my way over to France, and then I worked my way through France, Belgium, Netherlands, Germany, Czech Republic, Poland, Ukraine, Romania, Bulgaria, Turkey, Iran, Pakistan, into India. Now, I wanted to take my bike in here, guys, but they wouldn't let me. This is in Agra. And if you don't know where that is, guys, this is the famous Taj Mahal. Have a look on a map and you can see where this is. I had a goal, and that goal, while I was cycling around the world, was to speak in a school and meet as many young people as I could. I didn't want to be just another British lunatic fulfilling my own dreams. And I do a lot of work with young people because I believe that anyone can do what I do, or whatever it is that they want to do. The only thing that stops you is your own mind. And I love chatting with people, and I love spending time and meeting people, especially young people. It's something that I wanted to do. And did you know what, guys? I fulfilled this goal. I spoke in a school in every country. I spoke to over 10,000 young people when I went around the world. I was more proud of that than actually cycling around the world. So after, this is in Bangalore now. So after Bangalore, I headed down south, out down to Sri Lanka. And then I And again, if you don't know where Sri Lanka is, have a look on a map. I cycled a lap of Sri Lanka, and then from there I hopped on a plane and flew to Bangkok, because you can use air transport. I can't cycle across the oceans, obviously. And then I came down through Thailand, Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur, Singapore. This was the biggest day that I pushed, guys, 262.9 miles. I was in Kuala Lumpur, and a friend of mine was in Singapore, and he said, I bet you can't cycle here in one go. And I love being told I can't do something. I said, I bet you I can. And it took just over 20 hours to do it. But it wasn't too difficult. I traveled very, very light, guys. This is all that I carried for 6 months. This is it. And there's a bit of a story about this bike. Now, I had the budget through a sponsor to buy whatever bike I wanted. I could have spent however much money I wanted to spend. But I wanted to prove to people that you don't have to have the best, the biggest, and the most expensive of everything to go away and do something cool. So I deliberately bought a second-hand bike, and I cycled that 18,000 miles around the world. So the next time you guys want a new pair of trainers or a new pair of trousers or a top or a phone, you don't have to have the best, the biggest, and the most expensive, I promise you. So after Singapore, I jumped on a plane and flew to Perth in Western Australia. Now, I needed to get across to the East Coast. And trust me, guys, there is a whole lot of nothing in the middle of Australia. But the good news is it's only one road. You can't get lost unless you're a real idiot. But as long as you stay on the road, you're going to be just fine. And you have to cross the famous outback, and that takes you through the Nullarbor Plain. Now, this particular road here, you may have seen this sign before. This is one very small section of the trip across Australia. Its videos froze there for some reason, but it's Australia's longest straight road. And I remember cycling along this road, and there was all these bottles of yellow stuff everywhere, and they were especially after truck stops. And I wondered, well, what are these things? And it turns out the truck drivers, they're traveling such vast distances, they don't stop to go to the toilet. These guys, they wee in bottles and they throw them out the window. It was terrible. The road stank. And the day that I shot this bit of footage, I was cycling along, and the roar of this truck came up from behind me, and as it passed me, this object came flying out the window and bang, hit me right on the shoulder. I couldn't believe I'd just been hit by a bottle of wee. And the worst thing was, guys, it didn't have the lid on it. It was terrible. But I was angry at the time, but at least now I have a funny story to tell. And 6 weeks later, I arrived in Brisbane, and from Brisbane, I hopped onto a plane and I flew to San Francisco. And from San Francisco, I cycled all the way down the coast to Los Angeles and San Diego. I came out through California, Arizona, New Mexico, into Texas. Now, when you're cycling around the world, guys, you need to eat big. Luckily, that's not a problem when you're in America, because it's the best place to get food. It's incredible. And so is Canada. And the people at the restaurant, they couldn't believe how I was eating all this food, because I was quite skinny. But I was burning off maybe 7,000 or 8,000 calories a day. And cycling around the world literally became a world eating challenge. I was constantly looking for my next meal. It was great. One day, though, in fact, it was the next day after this, I was chewing a sweet and it cracked my tooth in half. It was incredibly debilitating, very painful. And so I needed to find a dentist, and I found a dentist in El Paso in Texas, and he managed to sort my tooth out. And I remember he said to me, he said, "Hey, James, I think what you're doing is great. You don't have to pay." It was going to be $1,000. Luckily in this country, we don't have to pay, but in America, as you know, you have to pay. And boy, I was not looking forward to paying $1,000. But he said, "Don't worry, this one's on me." And I tell you what, guys, I met so many kind, caring, wonderful, generous people when I went around the world. that I will be playing forward favors for the rest of my life. And it doesn't matter what country you come from. It doesn't matter what skin color you have. It doesn't matter what language you speak. It doesn't matter what religion you practice. 99.99% of people on this planet are kind, generous, caring people, and they want to help you. That's what I found, especially in America. And I've also been to Canada as well. Some of you guys know that. And I took a picture of everyone I came in contact with, guys. And this is what the dentist looks like. But as you can see, it's very difficult smiling when you've just had your face drilled. But luckily, it didn't take long to get better. After this, I headed out through Louisiana, Alabama, Mississippi, into Florida. And then when I got down to Miami, I hopped onto a plane and flew across to Lisbon in Portugal. And then I only had... it was easy. I only had 800 miles all the way back up to London. And I remember the day that I crossed that finish line, and there was lots of people came out to see me, and all the press and the media came out to see me. And they said, hey, James, did you know that there's 8 billion people on the planet? And you've just become the first and only guy that's rode an ocean, summited Everest, and cycled the world. And it's only a combination of 3 things. That's all it is. It's nothing special. But it was special to me because I remember, guys, lying in that hospital bed. And that doctor, he said to me, James, you must understand, you've really smashed yourself up very, very badly. It's unlikely you'll be able to do some of the things moving forward that you'd like to do now. You have to understand that. And I'll tell you something, guys. When someone tells you can't do something, if you want it enough and you do that one thing, and that one thing is to just keep going and never, ever, ever give up, by default, you will almost always get where you want to go or what you want. And that's the only difference between people that you may see, people that you see on TV or on YouTube or on social media, and you think, wow, that person's doing so great. Well, that person is no different to anyone else. He or she, they just didn't give up. That's the only difference. And I want to tell you something else, guys. If you treat people in a way that you would like to be treated, you will be absolutely amazed at the things that come your way. You really, really will do. Now, I've been speaking for quite a long time now, and so I thought maybe we can have, do some questions, and because this is not a job. This is my life, guys. This is what I do. This is what I love. And just before I wrap this up, I just want to let you know that when I was your age, I don't know how old you guys are, but when I was kind of like 8, 9, 10, kind of young, if someone had said to me, hey, James, by the time you're 35 years old, you will have rode across the Atlantic, you'll have climbed Everest, you've cycled the world. Yeah, I've also been rescued in the Indian Ocean as well, guys. So not everything has always quite gone to plan. And you'll be working on a project to fly a gyrocopter around the world. This is my next project, guys. I'll be passing through America and Canada next year, so I'll be able to come and see you. But if someone said to me, you'll be doing all of this, I would say, no way, that's not possible. But I tell you what it is, and I tell you something, guys, you guys are no different to me. And when you go to bed this evening and you put your head on that pillow, when you really think what it is that you want to do, or you have that dream, I promise you, every single one of you is capable of doing anything you want to do. It's just up to you whether you want it enough and you really want to do it. And as long as you're accountable for your own actions and you don't blame other people for things, you will always get there in the end, guys. You really, really will. So hopefully you're still there, guys. And so I thought, shall we take some questions? And thank you so much for listening to me, guys. I will stop sharing my screen now because I think I need to do that. Let me figure out how to do it.
We appreciate it. Yeah. But thank you so much. That was great, James. And the one thing you said there is that you can't bike across an ocean, and if anyone could pull that off, it's probably you. So I hope after the gyrocopter, you find like an aquatic cycle, and you make so guys, for questions, I know we're wrapping up the school day for a lot of you, so we'll do the classes that are in Eastern time zone first, and then if we don't get to all the questions we want to, you can pass along questions to James. James, if you're okay with that, I can share your email, and then people can get in touch directly. Does that work?
Oh, 100%. No problem at all. Nothing is a problem, guys.
Great. All right, so let's start with this Frawley's class. If you guys want to kick us off, just come on up and demute your mic in Sarnia, and then we can take a question. So yeah, so Sarnia, guys, just top of your screen, just a little microphone symbol. If you press that, we'll get to you guys first, because I know you guys are Eastern, so we want to get them done as quick as possible. And if you can't get it to work, oh, there you go, you're good. And
are we good?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Question is, when you were on the boat, how and where did you sleep?
Okay, that's a great question. When I was on the boat, where did I sleep? Okay, so I slept in a little cabin at the back of the boat. And I just used to let the boat drift because there's no land between La Gomera and the Canary and Antigua. So I have to sleep in the back of the boat and I let it drift. And I can't remember if you asked what did I eat, but I ate little dehydrated ration packs. It's very similar to like space food. It's dehydrated and you add water to it and it hydrates the meal. So things like chicken and pasta and chocolate pudding and all sorts of cool stuff. If you were to have some now, I like your hat, by the way. You've got a great hat. You could wear that on Everest. Yeah. So I hope that answers your question.
Awesome. Let's go to Miss Bauer's class.
Are we talking? All right.
You're good. Oh, no, now you're not good. There you go. Now you're good. I demute. No, I'll demute you. I promise. I got the power. You're good.
Oh, sorry.
Go
Are
for
we
it.
good?
Yeah.
Okay, Kat. Come here. Up. Okay, go ahead.
How do you use the bathroom? That's one.
That is a great question, Kat. And I can tell you that using the bathroom in the Atlantic is called bucket and chuck it. Does that make sense?
Sums it up very nicely. We like the imagery, sort of like the Australian desert with the truck driver.
Absolutely, yeah.
All right, let's head to Miss John's class. If you guys have a question.
Oops.
I got a question.
Yeah, we're
Yeah, you're good.
right there.
Yeah, you're good. Nope, you just kicked yourself out of the hangout. Okay, we'll go to a fourth class. Let's go to Miss Burns' group.
Hey. Okay, go ahead, Thomas.
Hello, Thomas.
You say hi back.
Hi. In Mount Everest, for the third camp, did they stay there, or because you said that you could only survive 24 to 48 hours? No.
Okay, Thomas. So that's a great question. So, yep, the Sherpas will come up with us as well. They'll go all the way to the top, and it was at Camp 4. So once you get up to Camp 4, you can't really spend any longer than 48 hours up there. Otherwise, you'll get very, very sick. So 48 hours is just enough time to get to the top and start to wake your way back down again. Does that answer your question?
Good, yeah. Is that good, Thomas?
Yes.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right. So look, Miss John's class, you guys are back. So you don't need to press anything. You're good to go to ask a question right now.
How did you get down from Mount Everest when when your breath was like running low, like when you were climbing down?
Yeah.
That's a very good question. So I got back down from Everest by walking very, 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 very slowly. And my Sherpa, Dorji, helped me. He was physically sort of holding me up and helping me. And then I managed to get some help from a second Sherpa who helped me back down. And it was really playing tricks on my mind because I didn't know I was really poorly. I just thought maybe I'm being a bit weak. and but it wasn't. I was poorly, but I didn't find that out until I got home. But ultimately, the reason I got back down is just because I kept going, and I had no choice. I couldn't just stop. You know, no one's going to come and pick me up and carry me down. So yeah, I just had to keep going.
All right, let's go to Miss Keller's group. These are great questions, guys. Nice, quick questions. I love it. Hi.
When you were motorcycle racing, would you have to wear like special padding so you wouldn't catch on fire?
Yeah, okay, great question. When I was racing motorcycles, did I have to wear special protective clothing? Well, yeah, I had a special suit made out of kangaroo leather. And the idea is that it stops me from losing all my skin when I slide along the tarmac. And also, I believe it probably is fireproof as well. Luckily, I never caught on fire, so I didn't find that out. But yeah, you do wear a special protective suit. You're absolutely correct.
Awesome. Let's head to Mr. Prager's class.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay.
How did you end up in the Indian Ocean? Like when you
Well,
had to rescue?
okay, that's a very good question. How did I end up in the Indian Ocean? Well, I met someone who wanted a friend. He became a friend, and he asked me if I wanted to do it with him. And I said, yeah, I'll do it with you. And whoa, there's a bug walking across my screen. Hold on. And I said, yeah, we'll do it. And so I ended up being in the middle of the Indian Ocean because I was trying to row from Western Australia to Mauritius. And now that's 4,000 miles of ocean. And we got caught in a very big sea. It was very rough. And our boat we got caught in a storm, and my rowing partner hit his head, and we had to be rescued because he needed medical assistance. And I'll tell you one thing, I was really fed up and down about that. But every time something bad happens or you feel fed up, there will always be something good that comes off the back of it. You just won't see it at the time. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with this, but there's a famous saying, and that is, every gray cloud has a silver lining. So yeah, that's kind of how I ended up being out there. I'll have another go though. Okay.
When's that? After the gyrocopter?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
One of these years. All right, let's go to Miss Vieira's group.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, guys.
Hi. What adventure was the hardest?
Oh, great question. What adventure was the hardest? Well, they're all very different. Physically, the hardest thing was climbing to the top of the world. Gee, that was hard. Mentally, I would say probably rowing across the Atlantic, because I was on my own for nearly 4 months. That was quite difficult. But the most fun was cycling around the world, because I met so many great people. So they were all very different. But physically, the hardest was Everest. But I think all of you guys can do it. And I'm going to tell you something really interesting to all the young girls watching this. Did you know that girls are better at altitude than men? It's proven. So there you go. One day you could climb Everest, guys.
Outstanding. All right, so we'll check with Miss Erickson's group. So you guys arrived a little late. I know your video is not working, but maybe your mic is. So if Miss Erickson's group in Pennsylvania is here. Hey guys, do you have a question? So your mic's a little off, guys. So you know what? Try and type in a question. If you get a chance, top left of your screen, little blue chat bar, you can type in a question. While we're waiting for that, I just wanted to ask, so gyrocopter, how did that even get started? How did you decide to do that?
I never set out to do it. These things just happen. Again, 3 years ago, I met someone who was talking about flying gyrocopters, and he was saying, you know, did you know that no one's flown around the world? And I looked into it, and someone has attempted it, and he virtually has almost flown the whole way around the world, but he wasn't allowed to fly through Russia, so he missed a little bit. So because of that, no one has flown around the world. And I've always had a fascination with flying, and I always thought when I was younger, only very clever people who have lots of money fly. And that's not true. It's not that difficult to learn how to fly. It was much more achievable than I realized. So I took it in steps. I wanted to just learn how to fly to begin with. I can fly gyrocopters and I can fly fixed wing normal airplanes as well now. And I thought, well, okay, I've done that. Well, why don't I do something with it? And why don't I work on a project to try and fly around the world? And here is the mission. The mission is to fly around the world and inspire and engage with 1 million young people and try and get them to pursue their own goals and dreams, just like what I'm doing. Because if I can do this, everyone else can do it. And every human being is really, really good at something. Everyone is good at something. And I happen to find out I have this knack for somehow surviving and telling stories, and that's what I love. But when you find out, when all of you sitting here listening to this find out what it is that you love, when you're older and you can start doing that, your life will be amazing. And so, yeah, that's kind of how it came about, really. I don't even know if I can do it. I hope I can. I believe it's possible. I truly believe. I've been working on this project for 3 years to try and raise the money and make it all happen. But, the worst that can happen is I've tried to do something that I really wanted to do and I've had lots of fun. And that's the worst thing that can happen. And if I can do it, well, it will be amazing.
Awesome. And when you're in North America, of course, just get in touch and we can help to find you classes and then places to talk, because the more your message is shared, the better. And good luck with the mission.
Absolutely.
James, as we wrap up, I mean, you've summed up the lesson that you want students to take from this quite a bit, but is there any one last message before we wrap up and get the classes to say a big thank you?
Yeah, I would like to say thank you ever so much for having me, guys. And I would really, really like to say that every single one of you watching this, you guys can be anything you want to be and do anything that you want to do. And don't ever let anyone tell you otherwise, because every one of you guys, even though I've never met any of you guys, one thing I can tell you now, every single one of you is great. You're great at something, and all of you are going to be a great person. So never forget that. That's it.
Marvelous. All right, so boys and girls, I'm going to demute everyone's microphone. So if all the classes could join me, and you're all demuted right now, in saying a big thank you so much. Awesome, guys. We look forward to having you back soon for more Hangouts. All February long coming up soon. There's an entire month dedicated to highlight amazing women in science and exploration, so we look forward to that. And James, that was great as always. Welcome back, and look forward to having you back very soon.
Thank you for having me.
All right.